Okay, now we are broadcasted. Now we are online, so people are joining in,
Okay.
streaming in very fast.
Okay.
So give
They
it.
can they hear us? They can't hear us.
Yes, they can now. Now they can hear you. They can see you.
Wow. So we
Well,
mute.
welcome.
Nyaroi, speak up. I see if I have your name right. Nyaroi.
Can you hear me? Yes. No, you
No,
called Charity
no,
Nyaroi.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Zula, housekeeping.
I'm still Grace. Yes. Oh, host.
Yes, that's
Zula,
okay.
housekeeping. Yes.
Yes. Charity, you're still muted. Hello. Hi.
Okay, Zula, over to you. Zula, over to you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to have you here with us today. We are very excited that you could be with us as we discuss the legal requirements of starting a business and the brand management. So before we kick off, I'd like to share with you a few facts. Now, we cannot all be entrepreneurs. We cannot all be employed. And we also cannot all have a side hustle. So if we want to start a business, a few people have been asking, where do I start? What can I do? And I'd like to tell you one thing. Please start from a point of interest. Start from what you know. And if you don't know and you're interested in something, please find the information. Now, the other thing I wanted to confirm is that we are 47 million Kenyans. Even if we are 10 of us selling shoes, it just depends on how good you are. So to set the pace today, and the reason we started Get It Right with Atarah Solutions is because we want to discuss the how of running businesses, the how of making a good employee. Because like I said, we cannot all be employees, we cannot not all be entrepreneurs. So we have three beautiful ladies today who will be our panelists. And I think I will hand over to them to introduce themselves and we kick off the session. Again, thank you very much for joining us and stay tuned. Naomi, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. As Nzula says, my name is Naomi Onguti. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I'm a certified company secretary. I'm a registered patent agent, and I'm also a commissioner of oaths. I practice law with the firm of OMA Advocates. Our offices are on Riverside Drive, next to the former Australian High Commission. I'll dive right into the topic so that I don't take too much of your time. So basically, I'm assuming that all of us who've joined in the webinar are people who are looking to go into business or are already in business. So when you're ready to go into business, you're starting to think, okay, should I register? How should I register? Most times you'll be told, okay, register a company. Thing is, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to register a company to run a business. It might not be the right fit for you. There are actually other vehicles that you can register and run your business with. Aside from a company, you have the option of a business name. You have the other option of a limited liability partnership. So I'll take you through and explain to you what these three different vehicles mean. So a company basically is like another human being, but we call it a legal entity. So a company can do everything that a human being can do. A company can buy, a company can sell, a company can sue, a company can be sued, and a company can sign documents. So basically, when you're running a company, it's like you're running two human beings, yourself and another entity. So the advantage of registering a company is the aspect of separate liability. Since it's another human being, but in legal form, then its liability is separate from yours. So let me give an example. Should you decide, let's say, for example, to buy property, you can buy the property in either your name or that of the company. So should, let's say one time the business gets into trouble and people have to come after your assets, then as a business, they will come for the property bought under the business, the company that is. They won't take the assets under your name. So the beauty about having a company is the separate liability aspect. So at least your assets are away from the business assets. So should your business crash or something, you go into a legal issue, then your personal assets won't be affected, but the assets that will be affected are the ones that are under the company. The other advantage of a company is the ease in raising capital. A company has shares. I'm certain all of you know that. So today, if you want to raise capital, if you want to bring in investors, then you can issue shares to these investors and get capital from them. The other advantage is continuity. A company can even outlive you. That's the only advantage a company has over human beings. Human beings die, but companies can live forever. So you can set up a company today, run the business, leave it to your children leave it to theirs, so there is continuity in the life of a company. So you can use it as a legacy baby. The other issue is also transferability. Some of us go into business, not so as to scale up, but to grow the business so as to be able to sell it for a kill. So should you bring up the business to a point where you can sell it, then you can easily transfer the business from yourself to this other party. So now I'll go to the next vehicle, which is the business name that I mentioned. A business name is cheaper to register compared to a company. And since you're starting in business and you really don't know whether you're going to be successful, you also don't want to invest too much in terms of registration, because you don't want to spend a lot and then 2 months down the line, you're no longer doing the business. It won't make sense. So it would be a better fit if you register a business name instead of a company. The only disadvantage that a business name has compared to a company is a business name is personal in nature. It doesn't have separate legal entity. It's not like the human being I said about companies. A business name, for example, me, Naomi, as an individual, you know me as Naomi, but in business, unajua kama Naomi mama yao. So now, essentially, I just have two names. My normal name, Naomi, then Naomi mama yao when I come to business. So basically, it's just one person. So should you have liabilities, then they're attached to you personally. So should you have a legal issue, and let's say your business crashes and your creditors want to come after you and your assets, they'll come for your assets on a personal capacity. Remember when I talked about the company, the liability is separate. So they don't come for you as an individual, but they come after the company's assets. So in a business name, the disadvantage is the liability attaches to you personally. And that's why when you register a business name, you don't get a separate KRA PIN because it's just one party. But with a company, the KRA PIN will be separate from yours because even the tax liability does not attach to you personally. The other advantage of running a business name would be, should you today want to terminate a business name is easy. compared to a company. Because with a company, you have to go through the grueling process of registering it with the registrar, gazetting it, so that you are able to terminate the company. But with a business name, it's simple. You just file one document and you're done. You move on with your life. So with the partnerships, they're almost similar to the companies. You can set up a partnership with another party if you want to go into business with them. These days, at least, we have a vehicle we call limited liability partnership. So it's a partnership between two people, but it has the same nature and characteristics as a company. So in terms of liability and whatnot, you can separate liability from yourself and your partner so that it's separate between the three parties. That is you, your partner, and the business itself. So, okay, now you have chosen the vehicle you want to go with, either it's the company, the business name, or the partnership. So the next step is to have it registered. To have it registered, you have to pick a name. And to pick a name, I'm certain one of the speakers will talk about branding. But aside from branding, the name has to be one that is not in use already. Because one, you could be infringing on someone's trademark. So you have to pick a name that, yes, is catchy, but also is not already there in the market. So the next thing you do is have the company or the business name or the partnership registered. Once it's registered, then you also obtain a KRA PIN for the business vehicle. That is in the case of the company and the limited liability partnership. One thing you need to be careful about at this stage is the tax obligations that you register. Because one, you might be quick to register your company as having a VAT obligation. But with VAT, you have to file returns every month. Otherwise, you're liable to pay 20,000 penalty. So at this juncture, you need to engage an accountant. It's better to have the right people advising you so that you don't find yourself in loggerheads with KRA for no good reason. The other step to take is now, once you've gotten the KRA PIN, you've sorted that out with your accountant, the next step is now to have a partnership or directorship agreement with your partner who you're doing business with. That is if you're going into business with someone else. Because, you know, when you're starting business with friends, it's all nice and rosy, but as money gets involved, then you might get into loggerheads. So the advisable thing to do at that point, when you're still friends, is to have an agreement put in place indicating whose responsibilities, who's doing what, the tasks and whatnot, so that at least it's clear from the onset each party's obligation in the business. So it's very important to have that agreement so that in future you have something to look back to. You don't start pacing around wondering, okay, who was to do what, who was to pay the supplier, who was to do timelines. So in partnership, it's important to have those agreements in place. So the next thing, once you have that in place, is to get a business permit with the city council. Because you don't want to a city council knocking at your door every other day, collecting a few thousands from you. It makes more sense to pay in January so that you have an easier time throughout the year. The other thing to do is also to have agreements or contracts with your suppliers, with your customers, with your workers if you have employees, because it's always important to have everything on paper. Because I know you're starting out and you want to run around, you know, chasing the paper and whatnot, but slow yourself down, have everything written down, because that is where you will have problems in future if you don't have records. Those receipts, keep them in a folder. Those contracts that you enter, make sure you have someone reading them for you if you don't draft them yourself, or if you don't have a lawyer draft them for you. The other important thing is have a template. You can have one agreement or contract done for you by a lawyer, which you can be reproducing each time that you're transacting. You don't have to each time go to the lawyer to draft for you. But at the very onset, have an agreement drafted for you. The other thing is also have terms and conditions, because everyone goes into business and they set up a website, but they just leave the website hanging. But you need to have terms and conditions attached to your website so that people are clear on how to conduct business with you. I'm certain if you look on Instagram, or if you have an Instagram business, you've written no refunds, no returns. If you write it more clearly in a terms and condition format, then people will know whether you agreed to refunds or returns or whatnot. It's important to make it clear so that you don't have issues with your customers. The last pointer to ensure that your business is seamless is something I touched on, intellectual property. Ensure that as you're building this business, no one comes and steals your hard work from you. You don't want to build your business, call it Naomi Limited, grow it for 10 years, then someone just goes to the registrar of trademarks and registers Naomi Limited as a trademark, and you can now do nothing about it because you slept on the job, you didn't register it. So it's important that the name you pick, yes, you register it with the registrar of companies, but make sure that you also register it as a trademark so that you own it. Because otherwise, someone else will come and steal your hard labor, your goodwill. The other thing is, if you go into the business of, let's say, writing articles, then register the copyright. It's a simple process. You can do it on your own. You can engage a lawyer, but at the end of the day, make sure that that which you own, you register that intellectual property. I think I'll stop my speech at this point so that I have more time for questions and answers. So I think I will hand over to Nyaroy. Thank you, Grace.
If I could pause before Nyaroy speaks. Before Nyaroy picks up, I would like Naomi to clarify something. There's someone who is asking whether a business permit is only relevant for those with a physical space.
A business permit is important even for those on online businesses right now, because if you remember, KRA has initiated the process of taxing even online businesses. So when KRA starts taxing you, then City Council will be on their way. So you'd rather do both at the same time.
So you mean that we can, even if you're running an online shop, it is important that you get a business license from KRA, a trade license, that's what they call it,
yes.
from City Council.
The license is not to allow you to use a physical space. The essence of a license is to allow you to conduct business within Nairobi. So whether you're online or in a physical shop, you're still conducting business. So it's advisable to take out a business permit, whether you're online or offline.
Okay. I hope that is clear for you, Elizabeth, and we can run to Nyaroy now.
All right. Thank you so much, Grace. And thank you, Naomi, for doing a good job. My name is Nyaroy.
We seem to have lost Nyaroy. Nyaroy, are you there? Apologies, sometimes the hardware can be problematic. So as we wait for Nyaroy, there's another question for you, Naomi. And we have Scholar asking, are VAT returns necessary for registered business with the registrar of business names?
Okay, like I mentioned, when it comes to tax aspects, it's important to engage an accountant who will guide you through which obligation you fall under, because not all businesses fall under the VAT obligation. So you might end up signing up for VAT, yet the service that you're rendering, that you're offering, doesn't really fall under that tax bracket. So it's important to engage the services of an accountant before signing up for VAT as a tax obligation.
Okay, thank you very much. Scholar, we will have a tax person, a tax expert, we call him Taxman, in our 4th or 5th webinar, and I believe he'll be able to answer your questions further. However, Naomi has made it a bit clear, and we'll get an expert on taxes in a few weeks. And Mary is asking about unique business name. How do you know that nobody else uses that name?
Okay, so once you come or go to a lawyer to have them register for you a business name, the first order of business will be to conduct a name search. So they will peruse the records with the registrar of business names and come back to you and let you know whether that name is available. And that's why when you're approaching a lawyer to do this transaction for you, it's always advisable to give them about 3 options, because once they conduct the search, you might find that 2 of the names are already gone. So at least you'll be left with 1. So it's advisable to always have 3 names in the pipeline.
Excellent. I know Nyarwa is coming to tell us what is in a name. I am so excited and looking forward to that topic, because I just can't get over some business names. I am sorry, I am highly opinionated. And you might ask, you call yourself Atarah. What does Atarah mean? Yeah, and I can take this advantage and say Atarah means crown. It's a biblical name for crown. We build kingdoms, and that's why you're here. So Charity, probably you can take over. Eric, we have Charity taking over. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. Okay, Nyarwa is back here. I know my topic was come after.
Oh,
Nyarwa.
so sorry. So sorry. So sorry. Using mobile data is a problem. Sorry, there's a notice I didn't click. I apologize. Can I continue where I left off?
Yes, please. Yes, please. We cannot hear you.
My name is Nyarai Gitonga.
Oh.
NG support.
Nyara, we can't hear you. Okay.
She's back?
No, we can't hear.
Nyaroi, we can't hear you.
Maybe I can take more questions, because I can see we still have some more questions.
Yes.
Sorry, ladies, excuse me. I don't know.
In Nyaroi's defense, she lives in the Bundus.
It was working well all day. I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me clearly though?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Okay, let me just get right into it.
Yes, please.
Okay. It's important to understand what a brand is. A brand is basically a name, a term, a symbol that identifies a good or a service. should I speak?
Yeah, you're right. You can probably just switch off the video, turn off your
All
the
right.
video. Yeah.
All right. I just do the audio.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. I just keep disconnecting.
Yeah.
All right. The first things one has to do when creating a brand is obviously coming up with a logo, choosing a business name, and the colors that represent your brand. I don't know what's happening. Can you still hear me?
Yes, you can.
Now, when you're choosing the name of your brand, as Naomi had explained, there are no rules really in choosing the name of your brand, but there is the issue of trying to copy another brand. Now, that's where matters get legal. But other than that, you have the leeway to choose any name that you like. But it's always advisable to approach it strategically. For instance, if you have a gym and you call it the Eatery, while it will not be wrong, it will send a very confusing message to consumers, and it will complicate your marketing strategy. When you're creating your brand, be it the logo, packaging, or tagline, one is to ensure that they are communicated clearly and effectively to the target audience. In order to do that, there are several things one should consider, such as which industry you're in. Not all industries are very flexible. Industries such as the finance industry or the legal industry, there's certain rules and regulations and boundaries you need to stick within. It's always important to consider it. Do your market research. See what your competitors are doing, not to copy them, but just to build on them, build on what's working for them. Consider the brand personality you'd like your brand to portray. Are you a corporate, very serious brand? Are you a fun brand? Are you modern? Are you laid back? The longevity of the concept brand you create is important, because changing a brand is an expensive affair. So it's always good with a concept that can be relevant for at least 3 years. After you create the brand, you thereafter have to translate it into your business collateral. This includes things like your website, email signatures, locations, mobile applications if you have, and you have to do this creatively and in the spirit of your brand. Basically, to put it simply, brand management is the activity of supervising the promotion of a particular brand of good or service. We say supervising because it's not the undertaking of marketing activities. You're not going to come up with marketing plans. Brand management is where you supervise and ensure that the activities that are being done are representing your brand in the most accurate manner. The reason why brand management is important is because it is an art that involves managing various aspects in order to achieve desired results. So it's not really just managing, say, your imaging or your marketing. It has to be done seamlessly so you can have the desired results. Some of the aspects of brand management include brand image. This is what idea comes to mind when people are thinking of your brand. Do they get excited? Do they get nervous? Do they get pumped with energy? That's a brand. You need to make sure that the things you do portray the correct image of your brand and that you'd want people to have reflected in their minds and think about you. Then we have brand positioning. This is how you place your product in the market. Are you a luxury good? Are you targeting a specific demographic? Are you mass market? Now, this needs to be reflected in things like your imagery, your marketing activities, your personnel, your locations, to the right target market. So it's very important. Another aspect to consider, is very important and a bit, it's very opinion-based, is the brand personality. Now, these are the feelings people get when they think about your brand. The best example I would give is when I get an email from KRA I normally just tense up. I kind of think about my accountant. Have I filed my returns? I think of a lawyer, all the while knowing that I'm tax compliant. But that is the response the brand elicits in me, because the way they've positioned themselves is that they're a serious, stern brand of accountability. So it's very important to know your brand personality and to make sure your brand reflects it. We also have the brand experience. This is how your consumers feel when interacting with your brand. This can be a good or a service. So it relates to things like customer service, the ambience of your locations, the quality of your product, the waiting times, how you problem solve. So the best illustration is, we all know those businesses or those people or those vendors that take too long to get back to you, or the waiting time is too long, or when you get a bad service from a restaurant, it forms your brand experience, and from that you choose not to go back. So brand experience is very important, because you actually lose business if someone's brand experience is not pleasant. We have brand communication. This is how you deliver your message through various sources, be it radio, flyers, brochures, social media, television. It all has to be in sync so people can understand what your brand is. When all the aspects are not coordinated and managed, it creates confusion and renders majority of your marketing activities are null and void. So if you manage one and forget the other, for instance, if you communicate that you're offering a discount on flyers, but then it turns out that there's no discount, customers be very frustrated and they would not be happy with your brand. So it's very important that you synchronize the imaging, that your logo represents who your company is, the experience people have when they come to your location is pleasant, the service staff speak in the spirit and in the voice of your brand. So when it's all done, when it's all synchronized, it builds a strong brand. Now, some businesses are not willing to invest in brand management in addition to their marketing efforts. For this, I would just say that you can spend a lot of money doing marketing on a bad brand and you will not get results. But you can invest in a brand, build it up, and do very little marketing, and you can still have great results. So between marketing and brand management, you can actually do without marketing if you do good brand management. When you build a good brand, there are very many benefits that come to you. A few would be you get customer recognition, and this puts you top of mind. So think of the first restaurant where you'd like to get, say, your favorite chicken or dessert or ice cream. Now, the brands that you think of are benefiting from your customer recognition. So you always go to them first, and this obviously builds up their revenue. It also makes it easy for you to introduce new products or new product lines into the market when your customers are loyal to your brand. I'm sure a heavyweight brand, a telecom brand, can easily introduce any other product line and would accept it very easily because we would know who they are. When you have a good brand, you don't have to do as much marketing as compared to those who don't have a brand presence. While they would be trying to establish themselves and convert customers, all you would be having to do with your marketing is to stay top of mind and to build your customer base. A good brand adds financial value to your business in the event of a sale or investor seeking. So you know how you have a great, say, soft drink brand? You can sell the brand itself without anything else, and the brand actually has value. You don't have to sell the factories or the products. The brand in itself has value, which is how franchising would come about. if you think about it. I'd like to share with you a few tips when you're creating your brand. Simplicity is key. With technology and information overload, you need to communicate quickly and concisely to your consumers. Consumers have become very, very lazy, and they need to see you once and understand exactly what you're saying and selling and how to get your product to the market easily. Creativity is always welcomed when it comes to logos and names, but it's also good to know that the more creative you are and the more out of the box you are, the higher your marketing costs will be, because you have to convince consumers why they should accept this new way of thinking. Then we also have to keep up with the times when you're making decisions regarding your brand. Progress is key in branding. Being old-fashioned has never served anyone. If you cannot keep up with the times, you will fail. Another important aspect is consistency. Consistency is key. You need to be consistent in your colors, in your fonts, in your logo, in your imagery, in your messaging, so that customers can be able to understand you and build some trust and be able to recognize you anytime they see you. The final thing I'd like to say on the tips is brand management is a continuous process. So there's no start and end date, and it starts from inception, your first customer. If your first customer has a bad experience, first of all, there would be no referrals since they have a bad experience, and it would set a very bad trajectory for your brand. So it's very important to think about your brand from inception of the business. In recent times, the value of brand management has been recognized and reflected in monetary value in company financial statements. They can actually value and monetize. You can monetize the value of your brand. This would explain the heavy investment we see when companies invest in PR companies to protect their brand reputations. In this day and age, one wrong move, tweet, memo, association can bankrupt an organization. And while the damage is not actually done to the product or service, it is to the brand. And this shows how important a brand is to a company. Thank you so much for your time. I apologize for technical difficulties. My partner will take you through a critical aspect of brand management, which is PR. I hope this was insightful. Grace, I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Nyaruai, and I will ask you a few questions so as to remain relevant. Someone is saying, please repeat the part where you talked about translating your business to to business collateral. Translate your brand to your business collateral. I think someone did not understand that. What did you mean?
Okay, let me explain. So you've come up with the name and the logo of your business. And the colors that you want to represent you. Now, depending on the theme you've chosen on your brand, whether you're warm, whether you're fun-loving, whether you're corporate, whether you're sleek or modern, this also affects how your business cards should look like, how your website should look like, how your flyers should look like, how your store locations or venue locations. So it needs to translate through all those items that represent your company to customers.
Okay. I hope that is clear, Catherine. Someone else is asking whether you know instances where a company has been failed by its name. I find that very interesting.
When it's been failed by its name?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let me not talk about any company locally. Let me talk about something international. Yes. There was this really popular television show called House of Cards. And the main actor, Kevin Spacey, was accused of several crimes. And from just his accusations of one individual, lead actor, it has ruined an entire enterprise. They were nearly shutting down the show, and thousands of people are going to lose their jobs, and actors. So I think we only had one more season, and I think the enterprise shut down. So, and when a brand, people also represent your brand. So your employees can also do something that can take down your company. You yourself could tweet a statement that could ruin the reputation of your company. If you decide to back, say, people who are not of favorable characters and sponsor them and put your brand in line with them, it will actually ruin your company and translate into financial losses. So the reason why, in fact, this is important, we're asking this now, and this is why PR comes to play, because sometimes the damage done, it doesn't have to be even real. It is just the effect. If people believe it's real, it will actually have a serious detriment on your brand. So that's why people invest heavily in PR companies, because brand damage, most people can, and most companies and organizations cannot come out of it unless you throw your brand and you start a new one, which would not be practical. Can you imagine if the Coca-Cola brand was ruined? It would ruin the mother brand, Coca-Cola, and all the other subsequent brands below. So if your brand is damaged, and this is why PR is extremely important, it can lead to the end of your business.
Okay. So I think that answers the question. There's someone else who is asking, what is the correlation between your personal brand and that of your company?
This is a good question. Good question. Thank you for asking that. Now, when you are the founder of your company, you are the walking billboard of your company. So if you're a fashion designer, for instance, but you dress in the most unattractive clothes, you wear tracksuits, you wear t-shirts, you wear Crocs, you wear slippers and sandals, it will totally misrepresent your brand. This is why even companies.
Oh dear. We seem to have lost Nyaruai again. She will conclude that question once she's back, but I think she was also done handing over to Charity, who will clarify on communications. Charity, over to you.
Actually, my name is Charity, and thank you for this opportunity to be here. First, to also learn and listen, and give my small contribution in how I can be able to do it. But first, I'll introduce myself. I am a strategic communication consultant. And basically what that means is I focus on the science behind communication. So basically for a lot of people, communication is easy. I mean, we all speak, we all write. Why do you need anyone to do communication for you? But I would want to issue a disclaimer at this point. That basic reason that people think communication is this simple is why a lot of people possibly get it wrong. But just to answer that question where somebody was asking whether there's a relationship between your personal brand and your company brand. Unfortunately, if you are the face of your company, then there's no way you can separate yourself from your company, and especially as the founder. And sometimes even as the managing director, as the CEO, if you're employed even as just the communication manager or the PR manager or anything that is the face of the company, or even the spokesperson. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they don't think about that, mostly at the point where they are being themselves, or especially on social media. That's where a lot of people lose it, because they tend to think that just because you are registered on social media by your name and then your company has its own platform, then the two of you are separate and there's no point anyone will put you together. And that's where you keep on having a problem. And other than that, you being the image, the founder of your company, then means you're the representation of your company, no matter who else you employ. So obviously you have to be conscious, and there's no way probably you can separate the two of you unless maybe you walk away. And even if you employ people, as long as people know you as the founder, they'll still relate what happens to the company to you. So basically, my opportunity, or what I was supposed to contribute on, was communication. And I'm going to start from the aspect of trying to probably explain what is important for a startup or somebody who's trying to get into business. Because from the discussions I had with Grace of Atarah, is basically people just wanted to know how important communication is for a startup. Communication is very important, because if you're starting a company, from the beginning, you need to know or to have a plan on how you're going to communicate about it. And because communication is basically the issue, is the basis of communication is you being able to transmit a message to someone and them being able to understand what you're saying, either through a channel or directly or various other things. The truth is that there are very many other things that affect this communication. And therefore you have to understand that while you're communicating, then you need to consider these things when you're coming up with a strategy for communication. And the first thing, or one thing I realize, is that when most people are setting up companies, they do the legal thing, they get the branding aspect, maybe correct or not, because sometimes it's not everybody who starts a business who intentionally started it. There are people who start a business because they planned and they sat down and did the whole business plan and everything around it. And then there are people who mostly start it as a side hustle. I mean, they started it either for fun, it was a talent, and then they realized, oh, I could harness income from this thing, let me formalize it. And then the whole, possibly the drama begins if you hadn't thought about it from the beginning. So the first thing you need to consider when you are coming up with a strategy or a communication plan for yourself as a business that is starting up is, who are you? Basically, who are you as a business? Because if you do not know yourself, I don't know how you'll be able to explain your business to someone else. So who are you as a business? What defines you? Why are you there? But using one line, can you define who you are and what you do? And in those 30 seconds that somebody's gonna give you, a minute or two to understand what you do, that you're able to say who you are. And unfortunately, that a lot of people think it's very easy. And I think people who start through a session on business planning or coming up with a business plan, I think the hardest thing is to come up with one line that describes who you are. That if you meet someone in a meeting or in a session somewhere and they tell you, introduce yourself, which is this one line that you're going to put across that will describe exactly who you are or what your business is about. So that is something that is very important to come up with, because it will form the basis within which you're going to come up with a communication plan for yourself. Because look, if you do not know who you are as Charity Katago or who you are as Riverwood Communications, then there is no way then you can be able to communicate or to tell someone else who you are. So simply get that right. Sit down, break it down, come up with why or who you are, basically. And then when you define it, make it simple and clear and very easy for the next person to understand. Which then leads you to the core story, or the second part of your communication strategy will be influenced by your core story, your inspiration. Okay, so you've decided to have a communication agency or a consultancy company for public relations. I mean, there are many other public relations companies. There are many other communication companies in this town. Why are you set up? Where do you fit in the picture? What is it that you're bringing to the table that is different from what is there? And that's where your core story begins. Because if you do not understand who you are and what place or what solution you're coming to put up, or to the gap you're coming to fill, then I'm not sure you'll be able even to communicate to other people. So basically, look at the bigger picture, think big, know what your business is all about and how you're gonna fit in within the bigger world and how you're gonna communicate it. Because if you don't, then it's going to be a challenge in coming up with your communication strategy, which then basically leads us to developing your goals, which if you remember properly in a business plan, you also have to come up with goals for your business. And in communication, we use the goals of a business to come up with a communication that we should use to talk about you as a business. So for instance, your communication goals should always support your business goals. For instance, if you set up a business and say, I intend to grow my interior decor brand by 70%, then in your communication goal, it will be, if the brand was maybe your linen brand, then in your communication goal, it will be around positioning this linen brand to look like the biggest thing for your company so that you can be able to grow it by 70%. As always, goals should be very precise, very simple, and almost measurable, mostly measurable, because then that's when you'll be able to identify whether they are synchronized, whether they are working for each other, and whether they'll be able to help you be able to achieve your goals. But once you come up with your goals, then obviously you're not setting up a business to do business with yourself most of the time. You're setting up a business to do business with somebody you describe as a customer, a client, something. There's somebody you need to convince, or you need to tell, or you need to make them understand what your product, your brand, your service is all about. So once you're at that position, you need to understand from your audiences, who do you need to reach as a business? And why do you need to reach them? If you're doing your business in goods, if you're doing your business in a service, who is this person? How do they look like? Where do they, for instance, if let's say you're into interior decor, where do these people shop? What kind of style are they looking for? How would they want this product packaged to them? If you're in a service company, for instance, like me with my communication consultancy agency, I know while it's a plus to have the bigger brands, the specific reason I came up, or why I have my agency, was to fill a gap for businesses that were starting up, or businesses that were small and they cannot necessarily afford the fee of big agencies and the kind of setup, because in a big agency, usually you have a minimum fee within which they can service you. They will need to have a number of people to work with you. And within that, like in PR, that is charged within an hour. And so I noticed a lot of people, while they have a need for understanding communication, PR, and everything and how it works, they cannot afford that budget, and especially as startups. So the reason I started doing, or by default, I began by helping people, then I realized there was a need for it, and then I got a lot of referrals, and with that, I just grew slowly by slowly. But basically, I was looking to fill a gap where there are a lot of small businesses that are coming up that would require a communication expert to support them, to help them understand how to run their communications, be it especially in PR, and how to get that support. Because anyway, as Nyarwai mentioned, marketing is not the cheapest option, but if you thought through from the beginning, you have a brand and everything else, probably PR would be the best option for you because it's not as costly. And anyway, generally public relations is about building relationships, like, watering the land for the next step. And basically providing a good relationship and for you and your clients so that you can be able to interact with them. And that said and done, there is no way, or it's not possible for the PR or the communication consultant to do everything for you. So basically as a startup or as a brand, then there's a lot of work you have to do for yourself. Get your one line correct, get your core story correct, get your goals correct. And then that way, even if you bring in an outsider or somebody to support with you, you can completely be able to sort of give them the proper brief of what you want, and they'll use your direction to be able to now to support you from a communication perspective. So basically what I'm saying is that you've got to do the hard work for yourself also, from setup to everything. You can't just wake up in the morning and think, oh, the communication consultant will do it for me. You have to, if you want your communication to be successful, you yourself need to understand your brand well enough to be able to support or to give direction to the people who are supposed to do your communication, be they your employees or yourself or a consultant who is out there. And then once you have defined your audiences, one thing that is usually a lot of people don't understand is the fact that just because I'm your audience or you're targeting me or your client doesn't mean I love you or we have a relationship or we are friends. No. Basically, all I care for is that you provide a solution that I'm looking for. Therefore, if you're not good enough, you're not treating me well, you don't have customer care, you don't call back, you know, I've been observing a lot of the people selling, especially on Instagram and yeah, on the Instagram platform. If you go out right now onto Instagram and check, there's a lot of people selling different things. But one thing I've noticed that while it might be easy to convince people or for people to follow you for the just because you've sponsored a post or done something like that, the challenge is to convert them into actually purchasing your products. Because just because you sponsored a post, I came across you and I got interested and I got onto your page, and possibly what you had posted was attractive and I liked it, doesn't mean I'll have to buy. So also one thing to note is just that just because you have all these followers or somebody who liked your page this time because they saw your post, doesn't mean that they will engage with you in business. You have to work hard. You have to relate with them. You have to have a good relationship with them. You have to look at all the things that would make someone come back to buy from you, or even develop loyalty to your brand for them to convert to business. So this whole story of because I have 9,000 followers, then I should translate to money is probably a fallacy. You could find somebody with 50 followers, but doing very serious business, because with those 50 people, they are constantly buying from this person, as opposed to somebody who came and liked, maybe made an inquiry, you made a promise and you never got back to them. So that comes back to the basics of customer relations. We can do for you the branding, we can do all the billboards, we can place you in for media editorial interviews, and you can tell all this beautiful story about yourself. But if we do not relate with your brand and you do not make it worth our while or our time, genuinely, an audience, your client, your customer will only remain loyal as long as you're serving their needs. And they do have options, so they would move on to the next thing. Next thing is to know what channels probably you need to use for your communication. And obviously this will be influenced by what your business is all about, what your story is all about, who your audiences are, and maybe where your competition is. But I come from a point of just don't do things because people are doing them. Do it because you have a reason you're doing them. You can justify the decisions you make. You've done research to understand your audience. You've allowed them to give you feedback on how you're relating with them through whatever channels. And as much as negative feedback is hurtful, I guess it always gives you a reason to question what you're doing and correct it. And nobody says that a business is stagnant, like it doesn't grow, it doesn't change. So also your communication changes with time. You might have just started like a small business, expanded, growth, small TV station or whatever on YouTube, and suddenly everybody is watching you. People want to advertise on it. You see, you won't relate in the same way. As you grow, you need to become more refined. You need to grow with your audience and their needs. And therefore, it's not static. So nobody should lie to you that it's set in stone. I guess the thing is that communication is very dynamic, and you need to keep on checking yourself, checking your brand, checking all what is going on around you. And as Nyarwai said, maybe moving with the times, as opposed to being left behind. Because if I'm not convinced you're moving with the times, if people tell you now we can easily pay through WhatsApp, and you don't have a platform for me to pay through WhatsApp, you're still insisting I have to pay through Safaricom, and somebody will move to the next other person who will allow them to pay through the new WhatsApp channel. And then once you have all these things ready and you know your channels, obviously you have to develop your content pillars. The easiest thing is to come up with a website, then you come up with all of your platforms. And then a lot of people, when that happens, the next thing is, okay, so what do I do with it? Just like how Naomi was mentioning about people registering companies, and then what next? Like, I was just told that if I want a limited company, I've got to go and do it like this, but you don't know why you needed to do it that way. That's the same thing with communication. You can't set up all these things and then you have a Facebook page, you moved into business 2018, you set up a Facebook page, you update it once in a year, you know, like, so what was the point of putting it across? So you really need to think. It's not, you don't have to, for instance, like Instagram is very good for visual brands where people need to see things and stuff like that. YouTube is where you need to develop all this content around maybe videos and what, and you know, and shooting all those things. Maybe that is relevant. Facebook has supposedly, now it's the boring platform where, in quotes, the old people are, the young people have moved on. So you have to start knowing where the people, your audience, the people you're communicating to, where are they? What are they looking for? Where can you find them? And when you put these platforms in place, please keep them active. If not, leave them out. And the next thing, or one thing I need to mention at this point, is that the pressure to just start a business, then set up a website, no matter how it looks like, just because people have to have a website, then you have to have a business card, I think is overrated. I remember a class I had at Strathmore where the lecturer was very clear, and I resonated with that. He was like, if you start up a business and you have only 20,000 shillings, the best that amount of money could do you is get your stock and you're able to sell it. Do that. Don't get into printing cards that do not make sense because you don't even know how your brand should look like or how you want it to look like. Don't go into setting up an expensive website and renting an office and then sitting there and wondering, okay, so now how will business come to me? It will not, because you put your money in all the wrong places instead of putting it where it was needed. So don't feel the pressure to have everything working at the same time. Just like how a baby is born and they grow up to whatever ages. Give yourself some leeway to start with the little that you have, but keep yourself aware and informed. Look at the bigger picture and know where you're getting to. So if you can only afford to print a business card, if it's really necessary, then print it, because again, how many people really do keep those business cards? Might it be better to do something else with the money, or find a way to create a database for yourself, or even spend that money maybe in setting up a forum where you can communicate to people? So I guess that's important in trying to do it for yourself. So in the content pillars, okay, the things you need to know first is that obviously most people set up a business to achieve some form of income, or not. I mean, very few people want to go through the struggles of running a business and it's not making them any money. Or so probably one of the core reasons you have a business is because you want to earn some income or something, some revenue out of it. So if you're going to do that, also remember that then you have to have your goals, your business goals. Make sure that your communication goals will support your business goals. Then you're talking to the audiences that matter, and you're using the correct channels. If you have that all together, then I guess it should be easy for you to be able to communicate to your audiences. Basically what I'm saying is, don't take communication for granted. We are always a third party wheel. I tell people a lot of times people call you, and actually they even imagine you should do communication for free. It's another thing I would like to tell people, that it's unfair to imagine that communication will be done for you for free. Anything for free is not necessarily what you get for the best. Always offer, give some, I mean, look for a partnership. Tell somebody, I'll do this for me, I'll do this for you, even if you can't afford it. Or get strategic advice. Consider, put it in your budget, but let it not be the third party, because at some point it might become the most expensive aspect of your business when you have this crisis and you need someone to come and try and sort it out, and because you never thought about it at all, you don't know how to resolve it, and at that point somehow you will find money to pay the communication consultant. So whether you can afford it or not, find a way. And if you cannot afford for someone else to do it for you, then learn, research, ask questions, look around, and try to see out of what you know about communication, how well you can make sure that it works for you. So once you have your content pillar, then I guess the next thing is just the last part of it, which is execution. And honestly, as a person who set up the business, if you have that already put together, because usually if you look at those pillars, they are still what is within your business plan, then it's very easy now for the next step, either to hand it over for somebody to help you execute it, or you can execute it yourself. But the basic thing, or if there's one thing I want to let you know, or I want you to take away from this, is that you must be responsible for your own communication, and don't take communication for granted. While it's an art, there's a science to it, and that's why people go to school to learn it. So don't take it for granted. Try and understand it and see how best you can do it. Meanwhile, I'd conclude by saying that as much as I've said, communication is important. There's different aspects of communications. There's PR, there's marketing, and then there's advertising. They're all different things. You need to know when to use which tool. There's also branding. You need to know when you need what. And that's why a lot of times people think a person who does PR is not necessarily a person who does marketing, and is not necessarily a person who works in branding, but probably in an agency setup, you'd find all these components in a business. So I guess what you need to understand is at what stage you need one of them, all of them, and all that kind of, and that kind of setup. And then it should be able to help you to make a decision on how best to communicate about your brand. I'm hoping with that, I've been able to demystify communication a bit, and to be able to help you understand what you can do with it. I am specifically right now specializing in public relations and strategic communication. And I pride myself in taking time to understand my brief, and not assuming that just because you called me, the answer will be here. And not also imagining that because this problem was sorted this way, the last time it needs to be sorted this other way. Hopefully, if you have any questions around what I've just said, you can share them with me. But on the other hand, if you need any strategic communication support, you can also reach out to Charity, or to me, or to my company. Thank you.
I think, Charity, that is my cue. We are already 10 minutes past 9. How time has flown. And there is Samuel who is saying, Grace, you haven't answered my question. And the question is to Naomi. He's asking, how do I start an online church?
Okay, good question. A church is not a business. So to register a church, you'll have to register it to the Registrar of Societies. So as soon as the same is registered there, then you can set up on the online platforms available, be it Instagram, YouTube, and preach the gospel.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much for...
Great. Can I interrupt you quickly?
Yes.
It's interesting how my video is working now. But anyway, yeah. There's a question I had seen from a lady called Shiko I had missed about branding.
Yes.
She was asking whether, because she wants to start a luxury brand, She doesn't have the money. So she's wondering whether she can start from a low price brand and then transition to luxury. What I would say is, in the same way a luxury brands like Mercedes or Gucci or what have you, they are luxury brands because that's how they are, and that's how they started. You cannot transition a bit to a Mercedes, so you'd have to have two brands. One for the low price good and one for the luxury good, because it'd be totally different and your customers be very confused. So I think for that one, it's good to differentiate. Yeah, no transition necessarily.
All right, all right. Thank you very much. You guys are beautiful, beautiful. I think you've been very insightful. For any further questions, we will share their profiles with you. You can always contact them. We'll email them to you so that you can pick up the conversation and clarify whatever you did not understand. We shall be doing this every Tuesday, not with the same beautiful ladies, unfortunately, but they will be back.
Yeah, come back, yeah.
They will be back because these are very, very important topics and we have to keep demystifying these issues. A lot of people take entrepreneurship for granted. A lot of people will go and say, I'm starting a company, and say Naomi and Charity and whoever, and go on. And they don't understand what they are communicating to the people, or even the legal processes for doing this. So thank you very much for joining us. And I think we can end here. Charity is from Riverwood Communication. You can check them online. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. Nyarwai runs NG Support Services. You can also check them out. Naomi is from Oma Advocates, Onguti, and I keep forgetting. I'm so used to Oma.
OMA Advocates, which stands for Uti Mangare Advocates.
Yes, and thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you'll be able to join us next week. Next week, we'll be having two lovely ladies who will take us through online selling. There's a lot of hype on online. Charity has said whether you post it on Instagram and have 1,000,001 followers, it doesn't mean it's conversion. So we will hear how they've been converting, and hopefully that you will tune in. For further questions, please send me an email. I can forward it to them. As you wait for their contacts, we'll share their profiles with you. Thank you very much, Zalego Academy. You've been of great support. I don't know what we do without you. And yeah, see you next Tuesday, same time. Thank you.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm seeing very positive comments.